Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
Hello, and thanks for stopping by the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. Today, I want to start you off with a quote from Dr. Henry Cloud. Dr. Henry Cloud said he had this to say. He says, one of the most expensive things you could ever do is pay attention to the wrong people. One of the most expensive things you could ever do is pay attention to the wrong people. Man, does that make a lot of sense? And so today's episode, as you can tell, maybe from that quote, going to be really talking about personal growth and development. Going to be focused on self. And if you've heard me talk enough, you know that I say personal growth and development is the foundation for leadership development. If you can't grow and develop yourself, you're not going to be a high impact leader, because high impact leaders focus a lot of time and energy on personal growth and development. So I'm going to share with you today three lessons, 3 articles I wrote on LinkedIn. Probably about a month or so ago by the time you hear this podcast. So I'm going to just go through and talk about several of these. And that was the first quote I shared. And then I shared some thoughts on it. And I spent a lot of years paying attention to the wrong people, a lot of years paying attention to the wrong people. And as Dr. Cloud said, that's the most expensive thing you'll ever do. So I wasted a lot. Doing that. But I paid attention to people who didn't care about my future. I paid attention to people who didn't care about where I was headed. I paid attention to people who were wasting their time and didn't mind wasting my time too. I paid attention to people who were making bad choices at home and at work. I paid attention to people who didn't know where they were going and didn't care where I was going. But if you've listened to me long enough, you know in 2005, I was born in 1969, so I spent a lot of years listening and paying attention to the wrong people. And sometimes I'd accidentally get it right, and I'd pay attention to some of the right people. But in 2005, I really got it right. And I paid attention to a friend, a co-worker. His name's actually Zach Sharrow. And he was looking out for me. We were working together in 2005 in a manufacturing plant. I was leading lean, and he was a frontline quality technician. But he had taken my iPod. You may have heard this story, or if you read my book, Defining Influence, I write about this story in depth in there. But he had taken my iPod. He said, "Hey man, I'm gonna take your iPod and put some music on there for you. My friend got a lot on his computer. I'll take it over there, download some music on there for you, and bring it back." I said, "All right, that'll be cool." And so he did. And while downloading the music, he came across a business book. That's what he called it, and that he also downloaded for me. And the only reason he did that is because he had heard his friend's dad talking about it was a really good book. And again, he called it a business book. So he told me about it when he brought my iPod back and gave it back to me. He said, "Hey man, I put that business book on there for you." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People." I said, "Is it any good?" He said, "I don't know. I ain't never listened to it, but my friend's dad said it was really good." So he told me about it. But I didn't listen to it until 2008 when I was starting my own business, and it actually come on. I was playing music and it came on. I didn't pick it. I was listening to the music and it was just playing randomly, and I had it on random, so it would do that, and it popped up, started playing that business book, as he called it. But now I know it's a personal growth and leadership development book, but I didn't know all that back then. But it took me that long. It took me 3 years to actually listen to it. But when I did, it began changing me at the core. And what he had given me was only a 1 hour audio book and it was an overview of the entire book. And the entire book was probably, I think, 12 or 13 hours on audio. So I just had just a highlight version, but I didn't know all that back then. That was the first time I'd ever heard this kind of stuff. But again, what got me to it was I was paying attention to the right person, Zach, who was looking out for me. And then when I listened to it, I started paying attention to another right person, which was Dr. Stephen R. Covey. And that was all I needed to begin changing the way I was thinking and changing who I was paying attention to. Because just because I started paying attention to him, 14 years later, I've been reading that type content every day, literally every day. And I usually write about it every day. And I, without a doubt, talk about it every day. I mean, every day for 14 years, I've been reading about it, pretty much writing about it, and definitely speaking about it. I didn't get from the manufacturing industry to speaking all over the country and sometimes in other countries. This podcast, I think and thank you for listening to the podcast, by the way. The last time I checked, there were people from about 108 countries listening to my podcast. So, I mean, that's blows my mind. So thank you very much for listening. And if you shared it with others, thank you for sharing it with others and that sort of thing. But I'm proud of you for growing and developing yourself. And hopefully you see me as one of the people you need to be paying attention to. And because all I want to do is help you. I want to help you have a better life at work and at home. And I hope you'll help me help others have a better life at work and at home. But even if you don't, I still want to help you. But today I no longer pay attention to the wrong people. I have a completely different level of awareness. And again, that's what I'm trying to do for you, is help raise your level of awareness so you can climb to the next level and beyond, whatever that means for you. And I've transformed my life personally and professionally. If you know me, especially if you've known me way back when I used to be somebody completely different, you know what I'm telling is the truth. If you don't, you can read about it in my books, but you're going to have to believe me and trust me. But those of you who actually knew me when I was younger, you know I'm a completely different person than I used to be. And it didn't happen by accident. I had to stop paying attention to the wrong people and start paying attention to the right people. But a couple of things I learned along the way is that you can't beware of something until you're aware of something. You can't beware until you're aware. That's a neat little quote right there. And it's true. So that's why I'm always trying to put something on your perimeter of awareness so that you are aware of it, but then you can beware of it, whatever that means to you in your life. Then the other thing I know, and I learned this from Michael Josephson, he said, you don't have to be sick to get better. You don't have to be sick to get better. You just have to have a desire to get better and act on that desire. But I learned both of those things by paying attention to the right people. I've learned a whole lot of stuff that I talk about and write about, not from paying attention to the wrong people, but because I started paying attention to the right people. So if you want to raise your awareness, you want to get better, keep listening to these podcasts, find other people who have podcasts you like, read books, listen to audio books, whatever works for you. But I do want you to know this. If you want to hear a lot about my personal story, maybe you don't know me, but you come to know me from my podcast or some other books. But if you hadn't read my personal books, meaning the ones where I really share a lot of my personal stories and my literal growth journey, you need to check out two of my books that have that content in it. The first one, 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation, How to Become Your Best Self. The second one is Defining Influence. Increasing your influence increases your options. So those are the two out of my 14 books that have the most stuff about my personal life in it. But that book, 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation, basically that book is a mental roadmap, a guide, a blueprint for how I literally transformed myself. And if you read Defining Influence first, I would probably recommend read that one first, so you'll kind of know my story. And then when you read 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation, you'll see me break it down into the literal thought process that I led myself through. And you can use those same principles, and you already have. You may not have articulated it or thought about it or structured it in the way that I'm going to teach in that book. But if you've intentionally led yourself from one place to another place, you're going to see yourself climbing through those steps. And you may see some things at a higher level that you didn't understand, and you realize I need to climb some more. I hadn't climbed high enough. Or you may be able to see it in a way that you hadn't really thought about it. You realize, yeah, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. Then you realize this is a pattern. I can apply this to any part of my life, professionally, personally, whatever. Whatever it is you're trying to achieve, you can take what I teach you in the 10 foundational elements of intentional transformation and apply that methodically and intentionally in your life and climb to the next level and beyond. And then you can do it again and again and again and again. So I just wanted to share that with you. And again, I opened up with that quote from Henry Cloud. Says one of the most expensive things you could ever do, is pay attention to the wrong people. So think about that and make some adjustments if you need to. Something else that I always say is we can look outward for an excuse, or we can look inward for an answer. And that thought right there applies back to what Henry Cloud was saying about talking about paying attention to the wrong people, how expensive it is. But a lot of times we need to look in the mirror and say, who are we paying attention to? You may have heard Jim Rohn says it. A lot of people say it. I don't know where Jim Rohn might have heard it, but I give him credit. But he always talks about we become the average of the 5 people we associate with. And I enhance that a bit and say the 5 people we choose to be around voluntarily. You may work with people or live with people, and you don't necessarily want to be around them, but you are. And they may not impact you that much. But I'm saying the 5 people that you want to be around, that you hang out with, you're going to become the average of those people. So again, if those people are not where you want to be, or they're not how you want to be, meaning their character, you start learning and you realize I got to grow and develop my character to get to the level I want to be at, or to lead at the level I want to lead at relative to high impact leadership. You may have to let some folks go. But if you try to hang on to those people and you try to become someone else, it's not going to work. It ain't going to work. You can't be a criminal and all of a sudden become an outstanding citizen and expect to hang out with all the criminals you hung out with previously for the rest of your life. You got to separate yourself. But if you want a better life, you have to start making better choices. And when you begin to transform yourself, you'll also begin to transform your life. This is why right here, when you intentionally change your mind will automatically change your life. I know because I've done it. I just started changing my mind. I just started changing how I see things, raising my level of awareness. And as I changed my mind automatically changed my life. So, where do you start? You might not even know where to start, but you got to start by raising your level of awareness. And that's what I'm doing with you on these podcasts. But I highly recommend that book I mentioned earlier, 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation, How to Become Your Best Self. You can dive into it, start figuring it out. Go to bluecollarleadership.com/download. You can read about 10 or 15 pages. You read the introduction and a couple of the first chapters. And if you don't even buy the book, if you just read those first 4 or 5 chapters that I give you for free, you're going to raise your level of awareness. I hope it raises it enough that you go dive into the book. But even if you don't, check it out. That's why I wrote that book. So now let's wrap up with my third thought from the day. And again, I'm sharing thoughts from that I previously shared on LinkedIn. I'm just diving down into them, expanding upon them, and kind of leveraging my time, because I've already put time into that before. So one thing that I say is, with every choice we make, we add another paragraph to our story. Someone reached out recently on one of my social media platforms, and they were telling me they didn't have anyone believe in them when they were younger, and they made bad choices, and now they've just wasted their life. And I replied back, I'm like, if you're still alive, you ain't wasted your life yet. And I could tell by their photo and some other information, they may have been in their 40s or 50s. They got a lot of life left, unless something crazy happens tomorrow, which could happen to any of us. But based on the averages, they got a lot of life left. So, why are they beating themselves up saying, I've wasted my life? They may not have even lived half of their life yet. So they've got a lot of experience to build on. All they got to do is start making different choices. And that's what I'm talking about in this quote I just shared with you. My quote, with every choice we make, we add another paragraph to our story. You get to write your story. You can change it at any moment. All you got to do is make a different choice. There's people I know, they pray. They're people of faith. They pray every day. And a lot of them, I know, they're praying for stuff that all they got to do is make a choice. They don't need God to help them. If they're people of faith, they believe in God and all that. They don't need God to help them. They just need to make a different choice. Then there's people who are not people of faith. They just hoping and wishing. Instead of praying, they're hoping and wishing. They hoping this will happen, or they wish one day this will happen. All they got to do is make it happen. All they got to do is make it happen. They got to start making a set of choices that leads them in that direction. So your ability to effectively move from where you are to where you want to be in any area of your life will be determined by your ability to transform your thinking relative to that area of your life. It's that simple. When it comes to true transformation, if you don't go within, you will go without. I'm going to say that again. When it comes to true transformation, if you don't go within, you will go without. So you are the key to your success. Whether you believe it or not, whether you admit it or not, it's you. If you truly want to initiate a change that will redirect your life and unleash your potential, focus on transforming yourself. See, thought is the foundation of choice. What you think determines what you do. And James Allen, he said it best, I think. He says, the outer world of circumstance shapes itself to the inner world of thought. The outer world of circumstance shapes itself to the inner world of thought. That's pretty powerful. But if you already knew what you needed to know, you would already be where you want to go. Think about that. Whatever it is you want to accomplish in life, wherever you want to be in life, if you already knew what you needed to know, you'd already be there. There's something you don't know. Maybe you know it, but you haven't done it. So to know and not do is not to know. To understand but not apply is not to understand. A lot of people tell me they know something, but they ain't living it, so they don't really know it. Because if they really knew it, they'd be living it. So until you change what you think, you will not change what you do. Until you change what you think, you will not change what you do. So if you want different results, whatever that means, you got to change how you think. Then you got to change what you do. You know, your conscious thoughts are real. What you think about, they're real, but only in your mind. Your thoughts will lead to other private thoughts and subconscious feelings or emotions, that sort of thing. But all that's in your mind. Nobody is even aware of that except for you. So there's something I write about and talk about in my book, 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation. And it's the choice formula. Basically, what I say in there is thought plus emotion plus action equals choice. Thought is something we are consciously aware of in our mind. Emotion, that's something we subconsciously feel based on our thoughts. And then action is something we do based on our thoughts and our emotions. And I'm going to tell you this, Andy Stanley says it, but our emotions sometimes are really, really bad leaders. Sometimes emotions can be great leaders, but a lot of times they're really, really bad leaders. But see, once you act on your thoughts and feelings, they are translated to the world as choices, and they begin to shape your life. As soon as you do something, whatever you've been thinking, it's out there for the world to see. As long as you're just thinking it, nobody knows about it. As soon as you start making choices, people know what you're thinking about. That's why people say, actions speak louder than words. A lot of times people try to cover up their actions with their words, but you can't cover them up. But ultimately, you first make your choices, then your choices make you. That's why with every choice you make, you add another paragraph to your story. There's people out there, you may be one of them, that needs a lot of change in your life. You need to change what needs to be changed, not what's easy to change. A lot of people don't even like to change the easy stuff, but even fewer people like to change what needs to be changed. And most often, what needs to be changed is in the mirror. Us. We need to make changes. You can redirect yourself at any moment. It's like pushing a reset button. All you got to do is make a different choice. I was talking to somebody the other day, or I was on some kind of training call with someone, and one of the folks on the call said they brought up, we've all heard it probably. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And they made that comment relative to something they were talking about. And afterward, I said, "Hey, I got a comment." I said, I've always heard what you said. You lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I said, that's true. But you can pour some salt on that horse's tongue, make him thirsty. He still might not drink, but you can make him thirsty. And if you make him thirsty, there's a good chance he's going to have a drink. So you might not be able to make him drink, but you can influence him to drink. And that reminded me of another quote I've heard. I don't know who said it or where it comes from, but I just remember it. And it says you can lead a human to knowledge, but you can't make them think. But again, you can influence them to think. And how you do that is you raise their awareness. Raising someone's awareness is kind of like putting salt on the horse's tongue. I can't make you think, but I can set stuff on the perimeter of your awareness that might cause you to want to choose to think about it, so I can influence you to think. That's what I do with my books, with all my posts and those kind of things on social media, with this podcast. I'm not trying to tell you how to be, tell you where you need to be, what needs to change. I don't know that. I may not even know you. I may not ever meet you. But even if I do know you, I don't really, really know you. Nobody really knows us. We got a lot of stuff going on in our mind that other people don't know anything about. But I'm just trying to share stuff with you that you could pull out the principles and the nuggets, figure out what it does mean to you, figure out how you need to apply it, where you need to apply it, when you need to apply it, so that you can have a better life. Whatever that means for you. Not for me, not for somebody else. What does it mean for you? And you may be like I was. You may need to push the reset button. I didn't need a little tweak. I needed a reset. I needed a full reset on who I used to be. And again, you want to know some of that, who I used to be? Go read 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation, How to Become Your Best Self. Go read my other book, Defining Influence. Increasing your influence increases your options. I go pretty deep in those two books with a lot of stories. And I was rough. Character-wise, I made a lot of bad choices, a lot of bad decisions. But I'm better now. And remember this, you don't have to be sick to get better. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership Series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.